The pipeline from Tuscaloosa to the NFL is as strong as it's ever been. We bring in Ben George of Tide 99.1 to talk about the Alabama Pro Day, which concluded today with 17 former members of the Crimson Tide. Ben, thanks so much for joining us. Always appreciate the time. So I think that's a statement right there. 17 players, just about the biggest haul that you've seen.
Yeah, it's the biggest pro day I've seen in the last 3 years. 11 guys got invites to the combine, so we knew the number was big. It's been big under Saban as far as draft eligible players are concerned. But yeah, 17 guys, and to have all 17 guys, participating in one spot or another, it made for a pretty crowded day and a long day inside the Malmore practice facility.
Ben, it's exciting when there are guys projected in the top 5 or top 10 of the draft, but for Alabama, much of the time, those are offensive and defensive linemen. To their credit, hey, they're that good to be drafted that high, but it's kind of doubly exciting when it's a skill position guy and a guy that's been as prolific as Amari Cooper and fun to watch for the average guy out there that's an Alabama fan. So, Amari Cooper's day?
It was good. I mean, he didn't run the 40. He ran a 4.42 at the combine. I think there was a lot of talk beforehand that he would run because he's run pretty consistently a 4.3 as he was preparing for the combine. So yeah, I think he was maybe a little disappointed in his time. But he caught passes from Blake Sims, did the vertical broad jump. He improved both his vertical and his broad jump from the combine. So a step up there. And then in the running routes with Blake Sims, he made a number of good catches and just showed his crisp form and his smooth in and out of breaks and such. So it was what we expected out of Amari Cooper. He's established himself as that number 1 or number 2 receiver in this draft. So we got what we expected.
All right, Ben, let's talk about the other stars. You've got Landon Collins on defense, going to be a top 10 to 15 pick. Blake Sims, TJ Yeldon, this could be a day that maybe upped his draft status. So just run down some of the big impact players.
Yeah, for TJ, we didn't get any official times. Alabama didn't send anything out afterwards. A lot of these scouts and NFL personnel, they just take them on their own and sometimes don't share them. But Yeldon unofficially ran in the 4.4s today, which, if true and accurate, that's a big jump for him. He ran a 4.61 at the combine, so a 4.4 would be a pretty big deal for him at running back because he's a bigger back at 6'1", 225. So if that's the case, that would have bumped him up, and maybe that just shows that he's getting healthier. He played injured towards the end of that year, in the season last year, so maybe that's just a sign of his health improving. And for Blake Sims, there was a chance to work out again in front with his personnel, so where he's more comfortable. He didn't have the best combine, so this is a good opportunity for him to perform in a spot he's familiar and comfortable. He did pretty well. His receivers, I think, helped him out a little bit on some throws. They made a number of good catches. But I think he's another guy that you know what you're going to get. I mean, you either take a chance on him and give him a go and see if it works out. But we saw what we we're going to get out of him. Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of other big news as far as the bigger guys are concerned. Those are probably the 3 biggest names. Landon Collins didn't do a whole lot today. More just hanging out. Did go through some DB drills, but didn't run. Didn't do any of those time drills. So that's probably the biggest highlights from today.
So if you're Landon Collins, you can hang out, but 17 players, just to do the math, Ben. So you've got 17 players hoping to be NFL players, and I'm guessing anywhere from 8 to 12 will get drafted. So you've got roughly half of these guys who are fighting for their professional lives. They go from playing at a place like Alabama, where they are either stars or impact players, or at the very least, very key role players, and now they're fighting to maintain their football careers. And so it's kind of an interesting dynamic that you've got the Amari Coopers that can kind of pick and choose and do what they want, and sure, they would love to bump their draft status up. Then you've got a whole slew of guys, 8, 10, 12 guys that are really trying to show up for these scouts and do their very best to get drafted.
Yeah, and there's a number of guys that, the last few years, 4 or 5 years, Alabama's had a number of top end guys. This year, there's fewer. Cooper and Collins are the clear elite players in this class as far as NFL is concerned. But yeah, you have a number of guys like Yeldon who could be one of the first backs off. With the way running backs are being valued right now, could drop to the third, fourth round. You got a couple offensive linemen and Shepard and Ari Kwanjo that are trying to move up the draft boards a little bit. They're not super highly rated. Leon Brown's another guy. So yeah, there's a lot of guys that are kind of in between that don't get a ton of hype like we've seen in the past. A guy like Andrew White, the wide receiver that played second fiddle, was hurt a lot, but was behind Amari Cooper as far as getting touches. But he said some scouts today timed him with 4.34. So if that's the case, if he's running in the 4.3s, that's a good pro day for him. He's got a chance to maybe make an impact and get drafted by a team and get a shot at wide receiver. So there are a lot of guys that are in the mix. And in these kind of events, they can only help.
So from Nick Saban's standpoint, these guys can no longer do anything tangible for him and for his football program. That's a very cut and dry way to look at it. Where that players are attracted to places like Alabama for the big stage and to play in huge games, but also to set themselves up for the NFL. So how does Nick Saban? How much is he involved or engaged in this kind of situation?
He's fairly engaged. I mean, I think he does a lot of the talking with scouts more than anything. He comes out and talks to NFL Network, talks to ESPN, talks to the media for a few minutes. So he makes a brief appearance actually out in the open over the course of the hour, 2 hours that they're out there working. But I'm sure he does most of his work in his office for this event, talking to these guys, these scouts, and NFL teams, and explaining to these guys, because he believes in a lot of these guys, especially the seniors that have put in their time, and put 4 years in at the university. He's going to back them up and help try to get them a job. And there's a lot of guys like a Jalston Fowler who, he might not be a very popular name among college ball fans because he's a fullback, but he played a big role in this team, and I think he's got a role in the NFL. And this is a chance for Saban to really sell the scouts and explain to them, what he can do for them. So he's not out in the open. We don't see him a whole lot, but I'm sure he's got his hands in a lot of what's happening.
And that's something you hit on that makes a whole lot of sense, that we see time and time again, because you need 53 guys in the NFL, and you need offensive linemen, and you need non-glamorous position players, whereas the typical fan in college football or in the NFL gets attached to the guys that handle the ball. But, hey, the third wide receiver on most college football teams is not going to see the NFL, whereas some key players that can fill out some other roles on special teams or along the offensive line, a place like fullback, hey, they're going to possibly put together a 3 to 5 year career in the NFL and get paid someday.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. This is another thing Saban pointed out was he'll push some of these guys that may not look like they're starters. He'll explain, hey, these guys can play special teams. These guys, they work hard. Not just when they're out on the field at their position. These guys are guys that can get it done at special teams, and that's what you have to be able to do one of those things well: offense, defense, or special teams. There's definitely a special team spot for a lot of guys in the NFL, and that's an opportunity for some of these players to earn a pretty good living professionally doing that sort of thing. So yeah, that's one of the things he pushed today.
Yeah, I think 500,000 is about the minimum. So it's not a bad deal if you can hook up with an NFL team and hang around for a few years.
No, not at all.
Ben George, Tide 99.1, our connection to Alabama football. Always appreciate it, Ben.
You got it, Mark.